Most people believe success is destroyed by failure, by bad luck, by lack of opportunity, by the wrong economy, by other people. But Orison Swett Marden warned of something far more dangerous. He taught that success is rarely attacked from the outside. It is usually eroded from within, quietly, slowly, invisibly, not by dramatic mistakes, but by small inner habits that go unnoticed. Until years have passed and a person wakes up asking, "How did my life end up here?" The most dangerous enemies of success do not announce themselves. They do not shout. They do not warn you when they arrive. They whisper. They wait. They disguise themselves as comfort, as reason, as patience, as humility. And by the time you recognize them, they have already done their work. Marden understood something most people never realize. A man does not drift into success, but he does drift into failure. Drifting requires no effort, no decision, no courage. It happens when a person stops guarding their inner world. This is why two people can begin with the same intelligence, the same opportunity, the same ambition, and end their lives worlds apart. One builds, the other fades, not because one was smarter, but because one recognized the silent enemies early and the other did not. In this video, we are not going to talk about motivation. We are not going to talk about goals. We are going to talk about the hidden forces that quietly dismantle discipline, character, confidence, and momentum, even in capable people. Enemies that do not look like enemies at all. Some of them will feel uncomfortably familiar. That is not an accident, because these forces live inside ordinary thinking, and they only grow powerful when they are left unnamed. Marden wrote that character is not destroyed in moments of collapse, but in moments of compromise. And the tragedy is this: most people never realize what stole their future, because it never arrived wearing the face of danger. It arrived wearing the face of normal life. In this video, we will uncover 7 silent enemies that quietly destroy success, not in theory, but in lived reality. And if you listen carefully, you may recognize which one has already begun working against you. If messages like these speak to something in you, consider subscribing now. These teachings will meet you at the moments you need them most. Enemy number 1. Quiet self-abandonment. The first enemy of success is not laziness. It is not fear. It is not lack of opportunity. It is self-abandonment. The quiet habit of placing your own needs, ambitions, and inner direction beneath everything else until you no longer recognize what you want. Most people don't call it abandonment. They call it being flexible, being realistic, being patient, being a team player. But internally, something begins to dim. Marden believed that every person carries a small inner flame, a sense of direction, a knowing, a conviction about what they are meant to build. And nothing destroys it faster than the slow surrender of one's desires in order to keep peace with the world. It begins subtly. You silence yourself in small ways. You agree to plans you don't believe in. You suppress ideas that excite you. You allow other people's urgency to outrank your own purpose. You postpone what matters because someone else needs you just for a moment. A moment becomes a week. A week becomes a season. A season becomes a life. And suddenly, a person wakes up feeling lost. Not because they lacked guidance, but because they slowly walked away from their own. Here is the metaphor. A traveler carries a compass, but each time someone else speaks with confidence, he turns it slightly to match their direction. After years of micro-adjustments, he is no longer lost by accident. He is lost by accumulation. That is how self-abandonment works. not through dramatic betrayal of the self, but through 1,000 small permissions where a person teaches the world that their purpose can wait. Psychologically, this enemy is devastating, because the more you betray your inner direction, the more your self-respect erodes. And the more self-respect erodes, the more you tolerate a life you were never meant to live. Marden warned that nothing weakens character like the failure to honor one's own convictions. Success cannot grow in a life where the self is always last in line. The cure is not selfishness. The cure is remembrance, a return to the inner flame you silenced, a quiet decision to stop handing your compass to people who are not walking your path, a willingness to disappoint others before you disappoint your future. Because success begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Enemy number 2, the comfort that slowly shrinks your life. The second silent enemy is comfort that becomes confinement. Comfort itself is not the problem. Rest is necessary. Stability is good. But comfort has a hidden nature. It expands until it becomes a cage. Marden warned that one of the most deceptive forces in a person's life is the desire to stay where things feel safe. Not because safety is wrong, but because safety quietly becomes avoidance, and avoidance quietly becomes stagnation. Here is how it begins. You choose what feels familiar over what feels meaningful. You take the easy task instead of the necessary one. You stop stretching your abilities because stretching feels uncomfortable. You push dreams to later, a later that never arrives. And day by day, the boundaries of your life grow smaller. You don't even notice it happening because the cage is lined with softness. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel wrong. It simply keeps you exactly where you are. Let me share with you another metaphor. Imagine a vast, open field full of paths and possibilities. Slowly, fences begin to appear, not built by others, but built by your own avoidance. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you hammer one more post into the ground. Years later, you stand in a small enclosure, believing the world itself has shrunk, never realizing it was you who built the walls. This enemy is dangerous because it feels innocent. There is no crisis, no collapse, no external pressure forcing you to change. Life is fine, and fine is the greatest trap of all. Psychologically, humans are wired to prefer predictability, even when predictability costs them their potential. Marden often wrote that a person's greatest achievements live on the other side of discomfort. Not reckless discomfort, but the discomfort of confronting one's own unused abilities. The tragedy is this. Most people don't fail because they tried and fell short. They fail because they never left the zone where failure was even possible. Comfort steals ambition by offering a painless alternative, which is existing, not progress, not becoming more, just existing. The cure is not to reject comfort entirely. That leads to burnout. The cure is to reclaim movement, a small stretch, a new challenge, a willingness to lean into unfamiliar effort, because comfort is only healthy when it is earned, not when it replaces the work that would have made you into who you were meant to be. Success expands only as far as you are willing to outgrow what feels easy. Enemy number 3, noise. This is not the noise around you, but the noise inside you. The noise that drowns out your inner voice. Most people believe they lack clarity because life is complicated. But Orison Swett Marden observed something deeper. People rarely hear their calling, not because it is faint, but because their mind is filled with everything else except themselves. Noise is not loud. Noise is constant. It shows up as endless scrolling on your phone, other people's opinions, advice you never asked for, the pressure to respond instantly, comparisons that don't belong to your path, Worry disguised as responsibility. Noise makes a person forget what they want, not through force, but through distraction. Here is yet another metaphor. Imagine a river with a clear, steady current. That current is your direction, your purpose, your instinct for what is right. Now imagine stones thrown into it all day, just small ones, but constant ones. Each stone creates ripples. One ripple means nothing, but thousands of ripples turn the river's surface chaotic. The current is still there. You just can't see it anymore. That is what noise does to the human mind. It doesn't remove your purpose. It simply hides it beneath 1,000 unnecessary thoughts. Psychologically, noise is addictive because it relieves you from confronting yourself. As long as you stay distracted, you never face the uncomfortable truth that something in your life needs to change. And change requires courage, so instead the world offers a quieter form of self-betrayal, constant input. Input feels productive, it feels like learning, it feels like preparing, but internally the cost is enormous. You lose the ability to hear your intuition, you lose the ability to make decisive choices, you lose the sense of who you are separate from others. You drift because drifting is easy when the mind is crowded. Marden believed that clarity appears only in silence, not in external silence, but in the silence created by inner alignment. When you remove the noise, even briefly, a strange thing happens. You hear yourself again. Not the world, not your fears, not the expectations placed upon you, yourself. And the moment your inner voice becomes audible, your path becomes visible. The cure for noise isn't isolation, it is intentional stillness, meditation. A moment each day when you stop letting the world speak through you, and you allow yourself to speak to yourself. That's because success is not found by shouting over the noise. It is found by quieting it. Enemy number 4, the fear of beginning. Orison Swett Marden believed that the greatest losses in life occur not from failure, but from the dreams we never dare to start, because the starting point feels too exposed, too uncertain, too vulnerable. This is the fear of beginning, especially when the outcome isn't guaranteed. A hesitation so subtle that most people mistake it for preparation. It does not shout, "I am afraid." It whispers, "I'm not ready yet." This enemy hides inside rational thoughts. I should wait until things calm down. I need more information. I'll start when I feel confident. This isn't the right moment. What if it doesn't work? Every sentence sounds responsible. Every sentence feels wise, but every sentence delays your life. You are like a man standing at the edge of a forest you must cross. You cannot see the full path, only the first few steps, so you keep waiting for a perfect map. Seasons change, the forest remains, and one day you realize the real tragedy. The path wasn't hidden. You simply refused to walk the part you could see. Most people expect clarity before taking action, but clarity actually comes because of action. Psychologically, humans fear beginnings because beginnings expose us. The first step is where we have no momentum, no proof, no identity built around the new path, nothing to hide behind. Beginning feels like standing on stage with the lights on and no script in your hand. So instead of beginning, people research, they organize, they plan, they prepare. They wait for conditions to line up, but conditions rarely line up. Life rarely becomes convenient, and hesitation, once practiced repeatedly, becomes a permanent habit. Marden warned that the future belongs to those who dare while others delay, not those who know more, not those who feel more confident, but those who act when acting still feels risky. The cost of avoiding beginnings is enormous. You lose years to hesitation, you lose confidence from inaction, you lose opportunities that only appear to the moving, you lose the stronger version of yourself you were meant to meet on the journey. Starting is uncomfortable, yes. Starting without certainty is terrifying, yes. But that terror is the doorway, not the barrier. The cure is simple, but not easy. Begin with the part you can see. Take the next small step, not the entire journey. Move while unsure, walk while afraid. Because every great life begins the same way, not with confidence, not with clarity, but with a person who is willing to begin without either. Enemy number 5, company that normalizes your smallness. The 5th silent enemy of success is surrounding yourself with people who convince you to expect less from yourself. Not through malice, not through hostility, not even through direct discouragement. Most of the time, they do it unintentionally, by living lives that make stagnation look reasonable and ambition look unnecessary. Orison Swett Marden warned repeatedly that a person's environment shapes their growth more than they realize, not because others control you, but because you unconsciously adapt to the standards around you. Humans are wired for belonging, and belonging has a quiet cost. You begin to mirror the behavior, the expectations, and the limitations of those closest to you. Here is how it happens. You share a dream, and someone laughs softly. Not a cruel laugh, just a "that's unrealistic" laugh. You talk about changing your life, and someone reminds you to be grateful for what you have. You try something new, and they call it a phase. You aim higher, and they tell you not to get your hopes up. Nothing dramatic, just small signals that returning to the familiar is safer than expanding into the unknown. Now I want you to imagine a tall plant growing inside a low-ceilinged room. The plant does not stop growing because it lacks potential. It stops growing because the roof quietly presses down on it. And over time, the plant bends, not because bending is natural, but because bending is what keeps it from breaking against the ceiling. Now, that ceiling is the emotional environment you live in. Psychologically, humans internalize the expectations of the group as a survival mechanism. If your environment normalizes fear, you will fear. If it normalizes small thinking, you will think small. If it normalizes stagnation, you will stagnate, even while believing you're trying. And the tragedy is this: most people do not outgrow their dreams. They outgrow the people who cannot see those dreams with them. Marden believed that character is strengthened or weakened by companionship. He wrote that a person rises to the level of those who inspire them, or sinks to the level of those who limit them. Success requires encouragement, yes. But more importantly, success requires oxygen, space to grow, space to change, space to become who you truly are. The cure is not isolation. The cure is deliberate association. Seek people who challenge you, not those who keep you comfortable. Seek people who have walked further than you, not those who fear the path you're considering. Seek people who make you feel that your potential is real, not people who ask you to shrink so they don't have to expand, because nothing destroys greatness faster than living in a room built for smallness. Enemy number 6, delay. The 6th silent enemy of success is the postponement of the very actions that would strengthen your character, sharpen your mind, and elevate your life. Not the postponement of chores, not the postponement of trivial tasks, but the postponement of the work that actually transforms you. Marden believed that greatness does not collapse because of weakness. It collapses because of delay. Delay has a gentle voice. Not today. Later, when things settle. Tomorrow, when you feel more motivated. next week, when you're in the right headspace. It sounds harmless, it feels temporary, but delay is never temporary. Delay becomes practice, and practice becomes identity. Here is how it works. You promise yourself to read, to study, to practice, to build, to focus, to start something meaningful, and then you move it to later. You don't reject your growth. You reschedule it. You don't abandon your goals. You simply do not begin them today. And life quietly rearranges itself around your hesitation. A blacksmith heats iron to shape it. The moment the iron glows, it is ready. But if the blacksmith waits, even a little, the metal cools. What could have been shaped with one strike now requires 10. And if he waits long enough, the iron becomes harder than before and refuses to change shape at all. Your moments of readiness are the same. Every time you delay action when your inner fire is warm, you allow the heat of possibility to cool. The next attempt requires more strength, more willpower, more courage, and often you don't try again at all. Psychologically, delay gives you the illusion of intention. You believe you are committed because you plan to act later. But the brain does not reward intention, it rewards execution. The more you delay, the more you train your mind to accept that your growth can wait, and your life begins to follow that belief. Marden wrote that a person's future is determined not by their dreams, but by what they choose to begin while everything still feels uncertain. Because once the moment passes, the emotional energy that could have changed your life often disappears with it. The cure is not rushing. The cure is respecting the moment when your inner voice says, "Now." Move when the desire to grow is alive. Take the step while you still feel the spark. Do what builds you before comfort convinces you to postpone it. Because delay doesn't steal your dreams, it convinces you to surrender them willingly. Enemy number 7, self-doubt. This enemy is the one Marden considered to be the most destructive. Not the doubt about whether something will work, the doubt that questions your worth more than your ability. This is about whether you are worthy of the life you envision. People often misunderstand doubt. They think it attacks your plans. But the truth is far more painful. Doubt attacks your identity. Here is how it appears. You have an idea, but your mind asks, "Who are you to try this?" You feel a calling, but you whisper, "I'm not built for that." You see others succeed and assume they have something I don't. This enemy doesn't stop you by shouting. It stops you by making you believe that success is for other people. The talented, the confident, the privileged, the chosen, anyone but you. Marden wrote that the greatest tragedy in life is not unfulfilled potential, but the person who never realizes they had potential at all. A man stands before a locked door. He assumes the key belongs to someone else, so he never reaches into his own pocket. When he finally does, years later, he discovers the key was his in his own pocket all along. The door was never the barrier. His belief was. That is the sneaky nature of doubt. It convinces you that the life you want is guarded by gates you were never allowed to pass. But the truth is simpler and more confronting. You already carry everything required to begin. Not to finish, but to begin. And beginnings are where impossible things start to become real. Psychologically, self-doubt is a survival strategy. The brain prefers smallness because smallness feels safe. Playing big exposes you to risk, judgment, failure, effort, uncertainty. So the mind whispers, "Stay where you are. At least here you cannot lose." But in protecting you from losing, doubt also protects you from becoming. Marden believed that every person is larger on the inside than the life they settle for. And the moment you question your own worth, You shrink your world to match the size of your fear. The cost of doubt is not failure. The cost of doubt is the life you never even attempt to claim. The cure is not arrogance. The cure is acceptance, accepting that you are allowed to want more, that you are permitted to grow, that you deserve to try, because success does not belong to the fearless. It belongs to those who move despite the fear that whispers, "Not you." And once you begin to trust your own worth, the world begins to expand to match it. Now listen closely as you subscribe and like this video. You now know the 7 silent enemies that quietly destroy success. Not dramatic failures, not catastrophic mistakes, but ordinary patterns that look harmless until you measure the years they have stolen. Self-abandonment, comfort that becomes confinement, noise that buries your inner voice, fear of beginnings, company that normalizes your smallness, delay disguised as preparation, and doubt that convinces you you're unworthy of more. These enemies do not ruin your life overnight. They ruin it slowly, the same way stone is eroded, the same way iron rusts, the same way light dims when dust gathers on the lamp. Marden wrote that character is not forged in the dramatic hours of life, but in the quiet ones, the hours when no one sees your choices, when the decision is small, when the consequence seems invisible. And that is where your transformation begins. Not by fighting all 7 enemies at once, not by promising to change your entire life tomorrow, but by recognizing the one enemy that speaks to you most clearly and refusing to let it remain unchallenged. Awareness is not a small step. Awareness is the doorway, because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. You cannot pretend the drift is accidental. You cannot explain away the habits that hold you back, and you cannot continue living at a level you now know is beneath your capacity. So here is the moment of inflection. You do not need to become a different person to reclaim your life. You only need to stop cooperating with the forces that quietly diminish you. Stop abandoning yourself. Step beyond comfort. Quiet the noise. Begin before you feel ready. Choose company that expands you. Replace delay with small, honest action. And doubt. Meet it with the simple understanding that worthiness is not earned at the end of the journey. It is required at the beginning. The life you want is not distant. It is simply on the other side of the habits that have kept you small. Marden believed that once a person aligns with their inner conviction, the whole direction of their life changes. Not suddenly, but steadily, powerfully, irreversibly. This is that moment. The moment you stop living by silent enemies and begin living by conscious choice. Not all at once, but today, in one small step. Because the great tragedy is not the life unlived, it is the life unattempted. And success always begins the same way, with a person who finally decides that their future deserves more than their excuses. If these words made you feel seen, understood, or quietly strengthened, share this message so it reaches someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can continue walking this journey of rebuilding and rising together. Your next chapter hasn't disappeared. It's waiting for you.